Hello, welcome to notebook page 19, Muslim Gunpowder Empires, period 2, 1450 to 1750. Make sure that you are writing your notebook pages at the top there and labeling this accordingly. So let's get started with notebook page 19, the Ottoman Empire. Let's go back to them. So a little bit of context that you need to know. So when we test your skills on SAQs in class and LAQs and any FRQs, you're going to be on point utilizing your historical skills. So founded in Anatolia, it's modern day Turkey, the Ottoman Empire is Turkish Islamic Sultanate that featured gunpowder weapons in a feudal agricultural society. The Turks were a militant and previously pastoral group that had conquered and migrated from Central Asia through Persia, the Middle East, and the Caucasus region. In the 13th century, the Ottomans invaded the Balkans region of southern Europe, making the first Islamic invaders of Christian Europe since the 8th century. After surrounding the struggling Byzantine Empire, the Ottomans captured Constantinople in 1453, officially ending the last remnants of the Roman Empire. After ending the Byzantine Empire, the Ottoman Empire continued expansion into Eastern and Central Europe, as well as into North Africa and Western Asia. So obviously you know that the sacking of Constantinople will initiate the age of exploration, because about 2 decades later, you have Christopher Columbus setting the sail to find an alternative trade route to avoid going through these Ottoman routes that are very hostile towards Europeans. Let's go to the next slide. Ottoman expansion. Keep in mind, they are a land-based empire, okay? Ottoman expansion. So the height of the Ottoman Empire was arguably achieved in our time period, 16th and 17th centuries, particularly under Suleiman the Magnificent. So if there's anyone you need to remember out of the Ottoman Empire, Suleiman the Magnificent is a perfect historical piece of evidence that you can use. So at this stage, Ottoman expansion seriously threatened Christian Central Europe and the easternmost parts of Catholic and Orthodox lands, which is going to cause some big rivalry between the Europeans and Christian Europeans and the Ottomans. Like I said, that's why they're going a different way to find another route to the Asia. So, while stopped at Vienna twice by allied Catholic states, the Ottoman Empire conquered and incorporated many languages and peoples. Economically, it continued a feudal agricultural economy. It served as the middleman for trade between Asia and Africa, kind of Europe, although it lost some of its influence and power at sea in the 16th century. And religiously, the Ottoman Empire identified with and enforced Sunni Islam. It actively fought Shia Islam in its often on 200-year struggle against the Persian Safavid Empire, which also began to use gunpowder weapons. And I know this might seem like a lot, but anything that you need to write down that should glue to you is the bold and underline, okay? We're going to go on to the Ottoman domestic policies. Again, you should be writing down anything that is bold or underlined if you're unsure how to paraphrase in your own words. So, to fund its massive land empire, the Ottoman Empire focused mostly on heavy taxation from its conquered areas and agriculture. While the Ottoman Empire maintained protection of non-Muslims, it still maintained the dhimmi status and jizya of other Islamic empires. The dhimmi status of that second-class citizenship if you were not Muslim. That jizya tax was also an incentive to convert to Islam if you were another religion. And if you did not want to convert, if you wanted to remain a Christian, if you wanted to remain Jewish, you would just pay a tax to remain so, but you would have this dhimmi status, which was a second-class citizenship. Several Ottoman sultans funded miniature paintings of sultans as grand leaders, distributing them to demonstrate their power and influence. So while the Ottoman Empire was successful in expanding in the 16th and 17th centuries, its extensive wars with Europeans and Persians took a toll over time, and it will continue to take a toll until they fall. Particularly in Europe, the Ottoman Empire struggled to control the Balkan region, home to mostly Eastern Orthodox Slavic peoples, by the 19th century. So something that you should note on here, miniature paintings is bold. That's really important because that is a specific piece of evidence that would demonstrate how people and these Ottoman sultans, which like an emperor, would convince its people that they're important. So if you just print out a bunch of, well, it's miniature paintings. So if you had a bunch of really glorious miniature paintings of yourself hanging around everywhere and they're huge and they're everywhere, people will start to think, oh, that person's in power. That's the only picture we see. Okay, there's no Instagram back then. They couldn't figure it out like it was today. But they did realize that if you just put a picture of yourself everywhere, people will start to think that this person is powerful. That's why. Please remember that. Okay, Ottoman military policies. Let's get into it. Make sure you write down Ottoman military policies. So not only did they struggle with the Balkan regions because they were Eastern Orthodox, but the overtaxed agricultural Turkish elites also are going to pose. So to keep the Christians and the Turkish elites in check, the Ottoman Empire began the devshirme practice. This is known as a blood tax. Oh, this is where it gets a little more interesting. So the devshirme, on top of the jizya tax, on top of dizzy status, to keep Christians in check in the Balkan regions, they instituted a blood tax. So this is where they removed Christian boys at the age of 8 from anyone who was in a Christian elite in the Balkan areas. And they did this. They did this so that they would take your child from you, your 8-year-old son, because you are Christian. They would take them from you. It's a blood tax. For the purpose of training your son as a military or administrative service and convert them to Islam. And it worked. Okay? So those people, those little kids that they took, those Christian boys that they took, became skilled, loyal soldiers, because if you take someone at a young enough age, you can mold them and indoctrinate them into what you want, which is scary. So these skilled soldiers, these kids have a name once they're of age, and they've gone through this many years of training. They're called Janissaries. So elite fighters raised and trained to be loyal only to the Sultan. Sometimes they were castrated to serve as harem guards. This provided the Sultan with a loyal elite fighting force to keep the Christians in the Balkans and the Turkish elites within the Ottoman Empire in check by force. Okay, so devshirme and the blood tax, taking your kid, that is by force. And it's because they are in power. And if you want to live, you have to listen to them, or you can form a revolution. So while Ottoman power began to waver as early as the 18th century, they remained a powerful force in European and Mediterranean geopolitics until their dissolution in 1922, when they lose alongside Germany in World War I because the United States stepped in. All right. Oh, this is a great map of the Ottoman Empire's maximum extent. Here we have 1683. That darker region is the directly administered territory. Those lighter greens are vassals and autonomous territories. And then any striped regions would be like in Saudi Arabia, the bottom right, and then you can see that also in Western Asia. Territory lost before 1683. Okay, let's go to our next slide. The Persian Safavid dynasty. So when the Mongol Khanates and the following Turkic rulers faded, the last native Persian empire reemerged in 1506 as the Safavid dynasty. So the Safavids will rise to power in 1506. The Safavids reestablished Persia as a major economic and political power for the first time since Rome, and they adopted modern gunpowder weapons. The dynasty also officially established Shia Islam, which is going to cause problems with the Ottoman Empire because the Ottoman Empire are Sunni. Sunni and Shia, sometimes they don't necessarily get along historically. And you'll see why here soon. And as the enforced state religion, the Safavid state is the largest Shia state in history. Ruled by a Shah, the Safavid monarch claimed divine political and spiritual power, converting peoples modern-day Iran, Central Asia, and the Caucasus region, and Mesopotamia to Shia Islam. They also effectively reestablished a Persian identity and laid the groundwork for the modern-day nation-state of Iran. Okay, so the Safavid dynasty laid the groundwork for what is now Iran today. The Ottoman Safavid Wars, they're going to go to war. And they don't get along, particularly due to religious differences. So much like their predecessors, the Safavids struggled to maintain their empire due to the presence of hostile states on multiple fronts. The large threat to the Safavid sovereignty came from the competing Sunni states, the Ottomans. They are known collectively as the Ottoman Safavid Wars. The two states collided in a back-and-forth series of conflicts for 200 years. These conflicts took a massive toll on both empires, with momentum, victory, and defeat on both sides across the 200-year struggle. So in the end, the Ottoman Empire seemed to take the overall advantage, ultimately occupying more Safavid territory in the and 18th centuries. Regardless, the conflict was a manifestation of the historical bloody disagreements and conflicts between Sunni and Shia Muslims. If you need to pause to grab more of what you need to write down that is bold or underlined, please do that now, because I am going to click to the next slide. So, this is the Safavid dynasty's maximum extent, 1501 to 1736. We have the Mughal Empire. Let me throw it all up here. We're getting close. We're getting close to the end, okay? If you need to take a break because your hand hurts, please take a break. Or if your fingers hurt from typing, take a break. But you need to be remembering this context so that we can utilize skills in class. So the Mughal Empire was a multi-ethnic Islamic state that conquered most of the Indian subcontinent. This was from 1526 and leaping to 1857. So beginning in Central Asia, a mixed ethnic group composed of Mongols, Turks, and Persian ethnicities successfully invaded the Indian subcontinent, subduing the long-standing Delhi Sultanates and other smaller kingdoms. Like the Delhi Sultanates, the Mughal Empire was led by an Indo-Iranian Muslim emperor and administration. However, Hinduism and other religions were granted substantial freedom. They were largely tolerant, and the Mughal Empire thrived for its first few decades as it consolidated control of the region, established its administration, and practiced relative religious and cultural tolerance. Under strong leaders such as Akbar the Great, there's a specific piece of evidence of a ruler from the Mughal Empire. The Mughal Empire grew quickly, flourishing economically and bringing relative stability to the region. The early emperors of the empire abolished oppressive policies such as taxation of non-Muslims and embraced the practices of regional religions and Indian culture. It was at this time period that the Mughal Empire had the resources and support to engage in several large-scale monumental projects, such as the construction of the famed Taj Mahal. So an example of power within the Mughal Empire would be the construction of the Taj Mahal. That's something AP that we can get out of this. The legacy of the Mughals. Let's throw this up. We are almost getting there, okay? This is our last slide, okay? So, aside from the religious and cultural toleration, one of the most successful practices that endured in India was the centralization of the nobility, most notably the Zamindar class. Regional rulers, known as zamindars, were essentially granted local sovereignty over feudal land grants and charged with serving as the centralized tax collector of the region. Also granted a military garrison, these zamindars were successfully incorporated into the imperial central government and incentivized to remain loyal to the emperor. The Mughal Empire would, however, experience a sharp decline in power and influence, beginning primarily in the period of time 1707 to 1720. While the presence of European traders and colonial outposts served to benefit the empire economically, the emperor position gradually lost its influence over central officials across the vast populous empire. Combined with several draining wars with the growing alliance of independent Hindu states known as the Marathas Confederacy in Western India, the loss of influence over regional rulers accelerated after 1720. While it would continue in the northwestern portions of India through the mid-19th century, it was eventually absorbed by the British Empire and incorporated into the British Raj by 1857. And there we have the Mughal Empire maximum extent until we have Imperial British come and take this region. So great job, everybody. If you're here and you're still with me, you made it to the end of this. Congratulations. Pat yourself on the back. Hope you have a great rest of your day and see you later.